Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journal.
Hello everyone and welcome to your Wednesday edition of the Rangers Journal podcast, where tonight we'll discuss obviously Roma coming up tomorrow. It's also a Q&A podcast as well, because usually we do the Q&A Thursday, but we'll shift it to the night. So get your questions in for my panel I have below. So introducing Stevie. Stevie, how are you doing, mate?
Evening, Jock. Evening, Ross. Evening, everybody. I'm good, lads. How are you?
Can't complain. Hump day. We're nearly there. Halfway through the week. Ross, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Aye, I say can't complain. We're nearly there. The Rangers game tomorrow, something to look forward to. So folks, I say it's a Q&A tonight. So send your questions in the chat, and I say I'll put them to the guys and myself. And as I say, we'll take a look obviously towards Roma as well, and just Italian opposition in general, because to say Italian opposite teams we haven't really had much success against over the years, shall we say. And I think this is actually the first time we're actually meeting Roma. It's definitely competitively anyway, for what I could see. So get your questions in. I say we'll try and get them answered as best we can. I'll start us off first then. Stevie, I looked at the the pressers for the game, and it was Diamante and it was Danny Roll, but everybody was speaking Italian, and all the Italian journalists was asking about Sunday, which I thought it kind of took the shine off it, because traditionally, Rangers European tie against a massive team like Roma, in years gone by, we're all sort of sitting salivating at this, and you're expecting Ibrox to be rocking, but it's obviously with the disappointment of Sunday still obviously going to be there. Danny Roll's got a big job to get this team sort of lifted and focused for today's game, doesn't
he? Yeah, he does. I suppose. I mean, Sunday was a massive story. And there you go. The Italians are asking about it as well. They know a fair bit about dodgy decisions as well, I'm guessing, there in Italy. But yeah, it's still a huge game for us. But I suppose it kind of reflects the fact that I think, certainly personally, I think the focus for the rest of the season is domestically. Europe's now a bit of a free hit. It's never a free hit for Rangers, but it shouldn't be our number one target. Obviously, go to there and do your best and try and get something for the game. A win would be fantastic. A draw would be good for me as well, as long as the performance is good again, or we can see more signs of improvement, which has already happened in a relatively short space of time. So I think Roll will approach it like that. Just go to them and try and get the fans something to really invest in, because I think most of us, or almost all of us, are behind this guy. So I think he wants to kind of keep that. I know we lost on Sunday, but you can still see the progression. The actual mentality seems to be changing slightly. They're doing far more now. The players almost seem to have a bit more like freedom than what they had before. I think Martin was definitely kind of almost like micromanaging them and like paralysing the players, whereas this guy, he's very clear in his instructions. So it is a job to lift them, but as you've said, it's still Ibrox on a Thursday night. Roma are a huge name, and it's a game we should be trying to go out there and win, regardless of where they are and how our season's been. He wants to get the momentum going, and I think this is a good springboard into the weekend and then international break. If we can get 2 wins tomorrow and Sunday, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think obviously we're sitting here with no points, so I would take a draw against Roma any day. You would have taken a draw regardless of where we were sitting. If we were sitting with 6 points, 9 points, wherever, you would have taken a draw home against Roma. Ross, then, do you believe in the sort of the mantra, the wounded animal tag, that whenever there's a team gets like a disappointing defeat, the next game's going to be the manager usually sort of labels the opposition team that, because it's sort of kind of grabs a press headline, doesn't it? But do you believe in that? Do you think we could go out and perform and react to get Sunday by us?
Excuse me. In terms of that, people coming away with that, kind of, as you said, that headline. I think it just depends on the narrative surrounding the club at the time. I mean, wounded animal, yeah. At times, we've done it ourselves. At times, we've come off the back of a bad result and we've been really good and almost made up for it. There's been games have come off the back of a bad result and it's been equally as bad. So it's hit and miss. I think it just depends. The narrative surrounding the club, the manager, the players at the time. But I'd said to you before we come on, I don't think we'll be beat tomorrow. I don't think we'll win. I think it'll be one each. And in my opinion, I think if we've got any hopes of progressing, we really need to win tomorrow. This was the one I think I said when I was on in the members show on Monday or Tuesday, that when the draw came out, this was the one I looked forward to because I thought we've looked on paper like an easy first 2 or 3 games. We can go into the Roma game with a few points behind is effectively a free hit against a big name, a name, like you say, we've not played them competitively yet, so that's something new and different and fresh. But the way it's panned out, we're kind of we need to win or we're not looking too good.
No, this is it. Like you say, I think I'm the same boat. I think that last year, I'd say we probably would have had 6 points on the board in that Europa League group, whereas obviously we're sitting with none, and we're playing catch up big style, and we've still got more of the bigger ties, to come. And obviously this is the first big one we have, and thankfully it's at home because I wouldn't fancy going over there to try and get a result, especially to try and kickstart your Europa League campaign and what we're coming into the start of November. We're so far behind. I've seen in the comments there that Dybala is injured. To me, that's a good thing. Anybody that has quality, has stature, in the game isn't going to be playing against us. I think we're going to be happy with that. It'd be interesting to see if Kyle Lafferty had the word in his ear back in their Palermo days, if they put a good word in. See if you could maybe rock up here and play at Ibrox one day. I'm just going to go through the comments here and just try and pick out things as much as I can here. Kenny's obviously saying I do agree that we're not up for this as fans as much as we should be, but perhaps understandable. Can only go and see with their eyes and results, Stevie. Can't really argue with that at all, can you? It's like you say, I think most fans are sort of in the same boat, really. Obviously, with how the season's progressed and where we're at, as you can see, you can start to see the shift, and you can see there's a change within the team. But it was never going to be an instantaneous hit the ground running thing after obviously all the scar tissue at the start of the season and just trying to obviously flush out what Russell Martin had basically put into the team for pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a fair comment there from Kenny. Definitely, that's how the fans are feeling just now. But I would kind of add that, maybe compared to like 3 or 4 weeks ago, before Will took over, I think there's a big difference. I think there's a fair determination there. It's starting to build. Never went our way on Sunday, unfortunately. But even I was too despondent on Sunday night. There's been all firm defeats in the past where I actually can't watch football. Like if there's other games on that day, if it's like a big game in England or whatever, I can't watch it. I just can't watch any more football that day. It's like, nah, put it away. But Sunday night I watched a bit of the Roma, where AC Milan, they lost 1-0.
Yeah.
And they look good. I mean, they kind of reminded me of Lyon, to be fair. They're quite an exciting, they kind of mix it up. They're quite pacey. I think it'll be a really good challenge tomorrow night. So I'm still quite excited about this game. I get what Kenny was saying there, but I think the tide's starting to turn, especially the fans. I think it'll build. I think by kick-off tomorrow night, I think a lot of those tickets will sell. And it'll be more of an event than currently what we're expecting.
Well, I think that's it. I think obviously Danny Ross hasn't had the experience of Ibrox rocking on a European night, and as we all know, it can really be a 12th, 13th, even 14th, 15th man, because the atmosphere that we generate, and it is world renowned, and it's been a real sort of, it's really helped us coast through games and get by games where we're up against it. And I think if we can get behind the team tomorrow night, and we can also try and push them on to at least give us a good performance and at least go toe to toe, because at this point, as Stevie says, it is a free hit, isn't it?
Yeah, we do provide that, give the players that extra 10-15%. I think recent years, especially the season we got to the final. I think the fans were a big part in that. So, as I say, when the draw came out, this was the one I thought Ibrox will be jumping for this one. It'll be a really good night. But I'm kind of struggling myself, to be honest. I thought the first game in Europe, we had the first Europa League game this season, when we played Genk, I thought was dead as well. When I went into that looking forward to it, I thought it was pretty dead. But like you say, hopefully now with a new manager, a slight upturn in performances, a wee bit of a more positive feel around the place, then I'd love it. I know I'm saying dead negative. I'd love nothing more than to go to Ibrox tomorrow. I'd be jumping and us to win 2-3 But yeah, I think that I'm hoping that that's the case, and the new manager and what he's brought in this early stage could hopefully go a long way to that. Because as I say, the game against Genk was absolutely dead, but I think the previous manager had a huge part to play in that. So hopefully it's complete contrast to what we see tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, I hope for the same. If I'm being honest, I do hope for the same. Stevie, Doug's highlighted then obviously Dybala is out, Evan Ferguson is out, Leon Bailey is out. An only dangerous player from the Premier League, Manchester United, Man City, Leipzig. So these are quality players that have played at a decent level. Obviously, Evan Ferguson's Republic of Ireland striker, so I would have to know about him, particularly when he was at Brentford as well, because I know there was chat that I think them across the city were looking to try and get him on loan this season, but they ended up opting for Roma. I think that's probably a good thing for us because he's a very, very talented young man.
Yeah, he's a really good player. And lost his way a wee bit, but I think Roma was a good move for him. But yeah, it's good they're missing. It definitely increases our chances of getting something tomorrow night. I actually think Danny Rose going to be really suited to like European campaigns. He's got that kind of tactical awareness, and I think the work that the players are doing off the ball now in a short space of time, like the kind of ground they're covering, basically the gaps are plugging. He's very aware. So I think like a game like tomorrow night, that's going to be key. Even though Roma are missing quite a few, they've still got a fair amount of quality in that side. They're fourth in Serie A. No team is fourth in Serie A any months.
I think it's joint. I think they're actually joint second, but they're sitting fourth. Just the way it works. I've got their stats here, so they're sitting fourth, but really joint second. 7 wins and 3 losses. Their away form is 4 wins and 1 loss as well, and they only appointed this guy in June 2025, so they're sort of in the same sort of transition as us. Obviously, they just haven't sacked the previous guy. They've stuck with him, and he seems to be getting a tune out of them. So, in no way is it an easy game at all, Stevie. Not at all.
Not at all, mate. No, they're class. They're a good outfit. Plenty of experience there, and like I say, what I've seen of them, really like to mix it up and a lot of pace on the flank. So, yeah, I think it could be quite an exciting game. And like I've said, it's almost a free hit, not quite, but it's an opportunity. I think Rowe's going to look at it as a huge opportunity to go out and get a scalp. Because, like I said before, it's if we can get a positive result, it's a cracking springboard. And even if it doesn't go our way, we lose, whatever, but they still play well, and you can see signs of progression. That's an improvement as well, and that will probably suffice for most of the fans.
Ross, Matthew's saying that the Roma manager is the ex-Atalanta manager, so obviously Atalanta last couple of seasons have, progressed quite well, been selling players for serious money. Obviously, they got to I think they won the Europa League, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
They battered something. Was it Leipzig? No, not Leipzig.
It was Leverkusen.
Leverkusen, they battered them. They went unbeaten all season, and then Atalanta absolutely thrashed them. I remember, was it Lookman?
Yeah, I think did he score a hat-trick? I think he might have.
Did that? Up against it, quality-wise, the guy's obviously a good operator.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, when you were touching on the players that they've got missing and still the quality they have available, I was going to jump in and say he's a great manager as well. I only found out the past kind of week or so that he was their manager now, but you said yourself, he done a great job at Atalanta. I think they were effectively also Rans in Serie A, and he I think he finished maybe second or third with them as well a couple of times. Got them into the Champions League, obviously won the Europa League, and created a squad of top players that went for millions of pounds. So he's obviously a really top manager. He knows what he's doing. I think that'll be good for Danny Rowe as well, even though he's worked with top names as a coach, to go up against somebody. I mean, I could be wrong, but as a manager in his own right, this is going to probably be the best coach that Danny Rowe's come up against at this point in his career. I don't imagine he'd have come up against much better than Gasperini in the Championship. And he certainly hasn't. He certainly hasn't here. So it'll be a good test for the team. It'll be a good test for Danny Rowe. And Stevie said, I think he'll be relishing it as well. I think he'll be seeing it as an opportunity to get a big result, to take a big scalp off at a top team and a top manager.
Doug's agreeing with you there, saying it's a good time to meet them from our perspective because they've been hit and miss in the Europa League thus far. So hopefully it's something we could take advantage of, and obviously a home advantage as well is something we need to try and do. Stevie, Doug's asking then, who do you see as the key player for us in the tie then? Obviously with Diomandé's been back from suspension in the Europa League. Who do you think is going to stand out? And we can't say Butland because he's been the standout for most of the Europa League, keeping the scores down.
No, thank God for Jack Butland. I know he didn't play great on Sunday, but I think this game's made for Raskin. He seems to really rise to these kind of big European games. I don't know, he can control the tempo, he can create, he can cover. If he turns up, I really hope he does, because midfield's always key. But yeah, to me, I think Raskin got to play tomorrow night. And I think if we're going to win, we're going to play well, he's got to have a great game. Got to kind of replicate his form for Belgium with Rangers, be a bit more consistent because he's been very in and out this season. Couple of really good games, but overall nowhere near his level. So I think for him, it's a perfect platform as well to kind of show, his manager in Belgium how he's doing, because this is kind of like probably the toughest game we'll face this season. So yeah, I expect him to rise to the challenge, play a blinder, and hopefully he'll be part of a winning team. But yeah, Raskin for me. What about yourselves?
Yes, what do you think? Do you agree? Because I think obviously Raskin is getting to the point now where he'll obviously want to put himself in the shot window, if not in European games for us, particularly European or international games for his country, where he seems to be excelling, and he's only going from the plaudits he's getting and the rave reviews he's getting every time he pulls a Belgian shirt on. It can only help us obviously for potential suitors, because I don't see the guy signing a new contract with the current state things are at the moment,
Yeah, I don't think he will either, to be honest. But in terms of him tomorrow night, I think it's fair to say that since he came back from the whole Russell Martin fallout, his form's kind of fell off a cliff, if I'm honest. But in saying that, him and Diomandé both usually save their best performances for European games. So I would have him, having thought about who I would start over the past couple of days. He does need to start. He does usually save his best performances for these kind of nights, and like you say, put himself in the short window. If he's fancying a move, then it's one of the best, if not the best, opportunity he's going to have this season at the highest level against this higher level opposition we're probably going to be up against. But for me, for players that I think might stand out tomorrow, is one that I feel a bit strange saying, because 3-4 weeks ago I never said it, but I'm looking forward to seeing, if he starts tomorrow, Mikey Moore, because I think since Danny Rose came in, he seems to be playing with kind of a freedom and an enjoyment that he wasn't before, and he's really impressed me recently, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do for the rest of the season. So I would have him playing behind the two. He's obviously going to do the same formation he's done with the two up front, the one behind. For the one behind, I would go with Moore tomorrow and see what he can do, because he seems to be playing into a bit of form and a bit of confidence, which was sorely lacking. You could tell early on in the season he just wasn't enjoying his football, wasn't playing well. His confidence was shot, but that seems to be coming back now. And I thought he was great on Sunday. I thought he was really, really good. So he's one I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues that start tomorrow.
Yeah, you make a good point, because that's who I probably would have picked, because obviously he's playing him through the middle now, and he seems to be enjoying a bit more freedom in the ball, and he's obviously allowed to go and do certain things where, as James here says, Danny Rose gives a bit of struggle in organisation and a belief. I think he's managed to get some belief back into Mikey Moore, because he's been so positive, and even coming on at half time, we're a man down, but he was energetic, he was positive, he was driving forward, he was asking for the ball, he was doing everything you want to see a young kid in a Rangers shirt do. Be positive, be direct, don't be fearless, don't taking people on. And he really did, I think, show a lot of people what he can bring to this Rangers team, and it's just a matter of trying to harness that and get the best out of it. And I'm hoping Danny Rose, the guy that can do that, because he was able to do that with Gassama last year at Sheffield Wednesday, and got a real tune out of him. And obviously that's why we ended up buying him. Being, there was other suitors involved, but thankfully it was us that got him. So I'm hoping to see more of him as well. I have a question here, and it is from Doug again. Stevie, who's your favourite Italian Rangers player?
Rino Gattuso. So a shadow of a doubt. I know he was only there for a short spell, but he broke into the Rangers team and we're going for 10 in a row.
Yeah.
And honestly, his first few games, he basically put Loudrup and Gascoigne in the shade. He was just, everybody was like, wow, look at this kid. He's just, I mean, you could barely keep up with him as a fan. Watched him. I don't know who the players, his opposition could. He was just everywhere, round that pitch, like back at the front, trying to create chances. He's just, I'd never seen another player like him. He was just incredible. And I remember when we obviously sold him, obviously when Advocat took over, he kept playing him at right back, and it was clear that it wasn't part of his plans. I remember being absolutely devastated that we sold him. I thought that guy is going to go right to the top, and I'm sure he had one season, the Italian team they went to, and then Milan bought him for 10 million, and then after that he was off. He was multiple titles, Champions Leagues, World Cups. He was just such a phenomenal wee player. Just I don't think I saw him play a bad game for Rangers. So Rino Gattuso, Doug, he was my favourite Italian.
Ross, yourself?
What about a boring one, but Amoruso. He was my growing up from obviously getting into Rangers at a young age. He was the first. I was just too young to see a properly appreciate and see 9 in a row. So my first title winning captain was Lorenzo Amoruso, and obviously we won the treble that season. And in his last season, we won the. I know he wasn't the captain, but he was a mainstay at centre half. We won the treble that season, and he scored the winner in his last game in the Scottish Cup final. So I know he had a howler or two in him, but it was excellent. And we're crying. That's exactly who we're crying out for now. Anyway, somebody like him at centre half. So no, Amoruso for me.
He was a character as well. He was like a proper leader. Charisma, and that. He wasn't just a really good football player. He was a real leader of men. So I agree with him. We could really do it. See if he's still fit. You never know.
He turned down Man United to come to us, which I find is mental, to turn down Man United at that time. I know, obviously, like where we were at the time, and we were obviously in the ascendancy, and like Avocat and then the Walter Smith's first reign, and then Avocat come in, but to turn United down with Alex Ferguson, with that team that they had, Giggs, Beckham, Cole, Scholes, serious big names there. I couldn't believe that when I think, who was it? I think it must have been a podcast or something he did himself, and he was talking about it. And then there's some cracking stories out there. Andy Gorham's got some cracking stories. And some that if you YouTube them, there's cracking stories Gorham had on Amoruso back in the day as well. I'm seeing here Sergio Perini. As I was saying to you, Stevie, and you were talking about that Juventus game where they absolutely tore us, and like Del Piero and Ravanelli and was it Ravanelli? Who's the guy with the grey hair? Was it Ravanelli? Yeah. Del Piero was quite young at the time, but he put one in the stanchion for about, I think it was 45 yards out on the wide pitch, didn't he? Just curled over the top of Gorham. But I didn't realise Perini was in that team until I seen him getting into fisticuffs with somebody. I think it was maybe when Alex Cleland got sent off. I just seen the face and the hair. But yeah, the other ones I can think of is actually seen it earlier today. It was Palavanoli. He's actually just agreed to become the Fiorentina manager. Like, granted, I think he was only here for one season, but he scored that, was it the Lordy against Dundee at Ibrox with the left foot, just 30 yards on the top corner. We've not really had many Italians in our team really over the years, haven't we, Stevie?
Negri was pretty good for about 4 months, and then that just ended.
Negri, and I'm wearing his shirt too. How could I forget about Negri? How could I forget about Negri? That was my first Rangers game, was the Dundee United game. I think it was, I don't know if it's before Christmas, it was after Christmas. They gave him the goal of the season award on the pitch at half time because he had 28 goals by that point. So it was like, here, just take it. Phenomenal.
That was when he scored the 5. I was at that game as well, mate.
This was the Christmas. This was the Christmas fixture, the reverse fixture. So it must have been January then, because that 5 was, I think, early on.
Yeah, it was September time, I think.
Yeah, it was the reverse fixture. So that was 97. Then, his YouTube highlight reel was great. Some of the goals he scored was ridiculous for us. Mate, was that before your time, Ross? What age are you?
97, I was 4. So again, I kind of remember him, but I wasn't really like religiously watching every single week. But I do remember him.
Yeah, as Doug says, they're the best 6 months of any striker. It was ridiculous. We could have swore we were on the pig's back on the way to 10 in a row that year because of that. There we go. Doug's come in with the stat there. So seven Italians in total. Varane, Russo, Perini, Negri, Maniero. I remember him. He was the one that we brought in. Supposed to be. It was Cleese brought him in. He was a bit like he's like Egil Ostenstad. The guy couldn't score, and they were chucking money at him. They said, "We'll pay you if you score goals," and he could even do that for money. Then Gattuso and is that Riccio? Can't say I mind him. Was he a youth player?
He must have been a youngster.
Shona, it's the first time competitively I could find online that we've played Roma. I'm not sure if we played them in a friendly or like one of these sort of pre-season tournaments where there's like 4 teams involved. I couldn't find anything online about it, but certainly competitively as our first game against Roma. I'll go back to some questions I started here earlier. So that was Doug's obviously favourite Italian. Who would be your favourite Roma player then, Stevie? We'll just circle back. We'll get this out of the way and then we'll circle back. You'd be Totti?
I mean, the obvious one's Totti, but for me, I'd go Batistuta when they won the league. Batistuta to me was like the ultimate 90s striker. He was just an utter phenomenon. It was so good. Younger viewers maybe not aware of him, but YouTube, this guy, he was just Fiorentina, I think, for most of his career in Italy.
Yeah.
And then he went to Roma. I think it was when Capello was the coach. And just he could literally score for anywhere. In the opposition's half, he could just strike the ball like nothing you've ever seen it. You know when they say he hits it and it stays hit, this guy was the ultimate of that. He just, what an absolute baller. He was just a tremendous South American, all the technique, all the skill and the drive and determination. You know, he seemed to really love the battle as well. So yeah, I go for Batistuta.
Ross, anybody in your time that stands out?
Yeah. Name just came up there, De Rossi. That's another one you could be doing with. But now he's another one. It was one who was absolutely mental, but he was a good player as well. I think he built up a reputation similar to Gattuso as somebody who was just a bit of a thug in the middle of the park, but he wasn't really. He could play as well. Umpteen caps for Italy. Well, I think once Totti retired, he took over and was naturally he was always going to be the captain. Once Totti left, but yeah, no, I loved De Rossi. I thought he was brilliant.
He did a very good interview with the Stick to Football Gary Neville podcast with Roy Keane and Jamie Carragher. If you want to watch it, he did it a couple of years ago. He just rocks up on this moped, and they're in a Italian cafe that they've booked out, and they're sitting eating pasta, and then the place is absolutely swarmed outside because he just drives around Rome in this moped, no helmet or nothing, just thinks he's basically the king of Rome, and then he stands outside for about an hour and just signs everybody's autograph with his pictures, just to seem come across as a really great guy, you know.
Yeah.
Other people in the comments
One
are
more
saying,
guy, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Stevie.
One more guy just popped into my head. Was it Cassano? Antonio
Aye.
Cassano. What
Yes.
a player he was. Total throwback as well. Apparently, an absolute maniac off the pitch. I read stories about my Real Madrid that I can't repeat because we're supposed to be a family show. But it's worth YouTube. And this guy apparently I think he loves food as much as he loves women. Put it that way, that's all I can really say. But aye, great, tremendous talent as well. Cassano, what a player he was.
Yeah, some here saying Montella and Candela as well as Del Vecchio's another one. They're quality strikers, just your typical standard Italian striker. Just knew where the net was, and you could score you any type of goal. But I think Totti obviously is the iconic one for me. But when you say Batistuta, Stevie, all I've got in my head now is a Channel 4 theme tune on a Sunday for the football. Just that was your Sunday every Sunday, and no matter what the weather was.
Saturday morning as well.
Saturday morning as well.
Saturday morning you had the interviews and stuff. Then you had the game on the Sunday. James Richardson, he had the best job in the world, presenting that show.
The Gazette paper.
Yeah, it was always just some beautiful wee cafe on the riverfront, and then he was interviewing all these top Italian players.
Aye. Yeah, that just takes you back. Just wish you go back to those days because Rangers were actually pretty decent back in those days, weren't they?
I remember him interviewing. This is Lazio actually. It was Casaraghi.
Casaraghi. Yeah.
Great player over there. And they asked him what British team. I think they asked him what English team do you want to play for, and he replied, "Oh, no English." He said Rangers. I'd love to play for Rangers. Just randomly. I think he ended up at Chelsea. Got injured in there unfortunately, but yeah, some of the names back then like Beppe Signori. Casaraghi, Italian football was it was it. Early mid-90s, it was the absolute pinnacle of football. It's a tremendous place.
Aye, it's where big teams went and picked players from, and especially defenders. You're always looking for an Italian centre back or somebody sitting at midfield because they just a different lifestyle. And obviously you see like Mark, we got Mark Hateley came through that at that time, and some of the players he was playing up against in that AC Milan team, and was just ridiculous. Boys of Baresi and stuff, and a young Maldini, just the elite of the elite in terms of world football back then. Right? I think we've covered Italian football enough for the night, and so we'll circle back then, obviously, to current affairs. Ross, coming to you then, as we obviously touched on Raskin earlier. Matthew's asking, do you feel the fallout with Martin has had a bigger impact on Raskin than we realise, whether it's just mentality or just confidence?
I think for me, and this is partly what I hope as well, I'm hoping and I think it might just be he's just in a wee bit of a bad run. Like players go through it, because when he came back after the Martin fallout, the first couple of games back he was excellent and he looked almost as good, if not better, than he did before the fallout. So, but his thing, as I said at the start of the podcast, his form has just fell off a cliff. I don't know what's happening, but I think he's good enough to play himself through it, play himself out it, and he'll be back to normal.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and obviously we're hoping that's the case. It's typical that whenever we have a result like the weekend there's very little games then to try and claw back in because there's another international break comes along, and any momentum you get, like I say, if we win tomorrow, your tail's up. We've got a domestic game that we can go more than capable of going and winning, but then we've got the break, and then that just all pauses. That's my frustration when it comes to international football. Anytime Rangers seem to be getting somewhere and progressing, a break comes and just totally kills the momentum, and then we have to start from square one again. Stevie, I had another question here for you. Where is it? Gary's asking, he wants to see Cameron back in the squad. I know Roll touched on it earlier today, saying about you have to, if you want the place, you have to earn it. I feel that's maybe a wee bit harsh because Cameron's best performances obviously came before he was here, and then he got the knock, and then apparently he's not injured. It's just he's just not getting picked. I just think he's one of those raw Scottish talents that I think we need to be backing and giving game time, because he's shown he can do it at Dundee. You know, he was a mainstay in that team last year, and he was goals contributing, and like obviously he scored for us in a European game this season. You think it's something we need to try and get him back in as best we can?
Absolutely. That's going to surprise me a wee bit, to be fair, because as you've just covered, whenever he got a chance, he looked really impressive. You know, plenty of energy, movement. I think it was the Pilsen game. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, that doesn't make much sense to me. A wee counterpoint to what you just said about the break there, though. I think this actually might come at a good time for Will. You know, he's going to have a lot of the players there, so he's got a wee bit more time in the training ground. He's only been there just over 2 weeks. He's had 4 kind of high profile games, high pressurised games. I know they're all high pressure Rangers, but they're coming thick and fast. He's not actually had that amount of like extended time on the training pitch, so this might be that moment for him after these 2 games. So it might benefit Cameron. I don't know if they might throw a bounce game in there somewhere, and if he can impress there, that'll maybe see his way back into the team. Because I think like yourself, and I'm sure Ross will probably agree, that I think Cameron definitely deserves a chance on his performances. When he did get a chance, he looked really good to me.
Ross, just your thoughts then on Cameron?
Yeah, it's certainly a weird one, especially that he's not injured. I think, see if you look at the lineup and the personnel that was in the middle of the park during extra time on Sunday, we could have been doing with him, because I think we ended up with a central midfielder like Rothwell, who came on and looked as knackered as he would if he'd played the full 90 minutes. And I think Antman ended up having to go into the centre of midfield for a bit, just because we were so short numbers in that position, especially with Askell being sent off. So I thought he could have been useful there on Sunday. But hopefully he does start to kind of show face more in the team, because he was another one I'd said at the show earlier in the week. I always like when we sign other players that are a standout in this league for other clubs, and I think in recent years we've been a wee bit kind of snobby when it comes to it, and we've missed out big time. So I was happy with signing, especially, but it's a free transfer. He's young, he's got potential, Scottish, fits the homegrown criteria. So I think it made sense to sign him, and he did. As Stevie said, he started well, and he looked like he was going to be an exciting player, but obviously he got that injury. But I was surprised to hear Roll today say he wasn't injured. He was he's just not been in the squad, because I don't see why he wouldn't be if he's fit and ready to play. I don't see why he wouldn't be in the squad at least. Maybe not starting, but I mean, surely he's good enough to have a place in the bench.
Well, I think you touched on it there about the snobbery thing. I do think we've probably missed a trick this season, particularly the recruitment side, from not picking up more players within the league. As obviously they did the pod last night about who we should be looking at in January, and we were just focusing on SPFL players. And there is quality out there. There is squad players available. Well, maybe wouldn't say available, but maybe if we take Shanklin, for example, who was available and we should have got for nothing, we should have just pre-contracted him, January last year, and got him in the door, even if it's not a player that's going to fit Russell Martin's style, but still a squad player, and come in and do a job, because Walter Smith had no issue doing it no matter what way he was playing football. He saw somebody within Scottish football, he could do a job, I like him, and we went and got him, and there was no issues, whether it was pre-contract or we fitted the bill for him. If the player's going to improve the team or is going to be a good squad player, 100%, we should be going after them, particularly if it's homegrown, because they're tried and tested in the league. Whereas this season, we went down south into Championship, and some of these guys that were, look at Rothwell as your example. Fantastic season last season for Leeds. Leeds fans were raving about him whenever he's announced he was coming to us, and we thought, buzzing, we've got a cracking player here, and it just doesn't work. He's just not tried and tested in this league, and it's just not working. So I agree, there is a snobbery there. And Stevie, I do get your point about this could be a good time, because Rowe will get an extended period of time with the players where it's not just match, recovery, light session match. I do understand that, and the worst thing you could do is you could take the players for a dip and lock loan again. Folks, I'll give a shout out to our sponsor of the pod, and that is the Bluebells Bar. in Puerto del Carmen, which is in Lanzarote. It's a family-friendly bar where you can eat, drink, chill, and party. And yes, they show every Rangers game live. So if you're out in Lanzarote and you're out in that way, go ahead and call in with them, give them your business, because they say they're great. They're great sponsors of our pod here. I'll go back to some questions then. Have a few picked out here. Stevie, Kenny's asking our questions. Do you agree that we are just far away from seeing a settled team, and that's just part of the problem? Yeah, there's a new manager, but it seems we're all over the place and all sorts of being banded about. I think it's a bit harsh because obviously Rolls he's only in the door a couple of weeks, and as I said there, it's he was straight into a game. He had one session, straight into a flight, straight to a game in Norway, come back home, light session, prep for the next game. He hasn't, like they say, hasn't had much time to sort of sit down with the players and not do football and not do, and even probably just get to know them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think he took a wee bit of criticism for not starting a winger at the weekend against their fullbacks. But ultimately, the game against Hibs through the week, I think he's tried to keep that structure and that kind of settled backline, because we've been so poor defensively all season up until he's came in. So I think he's trying to get a bit of continuity there and keep that going. So I cannot understand it. What's the first thing that Walter Smith fixed when he came back after taking over for Le Guin? It was the defence. Granted, he had Davy Weir and Hugo Egiog, but you build for the back. So I think he's basically just trying to do that. He's trying to plug gaps, and it's a work in progress. He's on mid-season, we're rolling, but he's not got time, so he's just got to try and do the best he can in a short space of time. So, yeah, I think one of my main concerns is that the strikers, I mean, they just don't look like much of a threat at all. And we kind of mentioned Cameron there. That's what's like really screaming at, like, really, to me, it's like this boy's a goal threat. He gets goals. So use him. You know what I mean? When your strikers on the scoring, they need to come from somewhere else. And he's got that. To me, he's the perfect example. You've covered it there, Jock, about like knowing the league. And he knows the league and he can score goals. So just utilise what you've got. It's a 2 consecutive managers that aren't picking him. I wouldn't put too much like emphasis on Martin, because he never signed him. But yeah, we need to really start getting goals at other places if the strikers aren't doing it between now and January. That's vital. The midfielders really need to like step up.
Ross, Sir Blue says Shanklin would have taken one of the chances on Sunday. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that Tremiti chance, I think I said to use in the chat, anybody but Tremiti would have taken that chance. Yeah, but I'm looking at it in the bigger picture, yeah, and especially now, no hindsight and everything, but you see how well Shanklin's doing now for the Hearts team that are flying, in fairness. But if he was similar to Cameron, if he was available in a free in the summer, it was a no-brainer to just go and get him, and he wouldn't have commanded a huge wage. We wouldn't have cost anything, obviously. And it's shown now that he would have been needed, because the strikers just hadn't formed in him. I know Daniel scored a couple of goals and came into a wee bit of form since Rolls came in, but especially Miovski and especially Tremiti, they're just out of form at the moment, and it would have made sense. Again, I know I'm saying this in hindsight, but it would have made sense to just take him on a free. And as Stevie said, even if he doesn't fit any particular style of play, he's a goal scorer, and every team's going to need one. So he would have been there as an option and an avenue to explore when we're chasing a goal like Sunday. And if we got the chances, yeah, I would have been confident that he would have taken them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Go ahead, Stevie.
I'll come back on this, honestly, Ross. We done a pod about 18 months ago, and I had so many people tell me that Lawrence Shankland wasn't the answer for Rangers, and it makes me tear my hair out. Everybody's seen it, like, since, like, forever, how long it was like the guy's a natural finisher, he's a leader. You've got me started on Lawrence Shankland now, but it's just, it was a completely perfect signing for Rangers, a free transfer. It would have made so much sense. To me, it was like in the summer, we could have had Shankland, we could have re-signed Cherny for what we've basically paid for Chermiti. That's like 50, 60 goal contributions in a season. But I've nothing like the boy Chermiti. I'm not criticising him. Everybody's frustration and anger must go towards Thelwell. He's the guy who's made this signing. Chermiti doesn't deserve the stick that he's getting from me. It should be totally aimed at Thelwell, and by relation them Stewart as well.
Steve, I'll stick with you then. Sean is saying, obviously, we've signed Suter, who was outstanding for Hearts and came here. was fourth choice, now first choice. Hasty, Jones, Docherty, obviously picking on other Scottish players at the time that have come in over the years and just never made it. Is that a fair assessment, do you think, or is it? Do you have to look at the circumstances at the time? I mean, like Hasty, was Gerrard come in under Gerrard and was quite loaned out quite quickly because it just didn't work. But he was flying in that Motherwell team at the time, and then Docherty came in, and Docherty I kind of felt sorry for because he was kind of going the sort of the same way Barnes going in and out the team, shows glimpses but not consistent enough. And then Jones again had it in his locker. You could see it again in small glimpses. Could get you goals. Could give you a 10 out of 10 performance one week, and then he could go missing for 3 months, and then then you have to rely on him coming out of the cold, and then he maybe does something, does okay, but then is it the shirt or is it the circumstances? Is the shirt too heavy for some players, and it's just a mentality thing, or is it the external factors like the chopping and changing managers doesn't help, and what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely both, mate. I mean, I think like some of those names there, like Docherty, he's made a decent career at Charlton. He missed a penalty last night, actually.
Right.
But when Gerrard was there, he had a far better standard of player. Ross, it might have been you in the chat the other night, you posted a thing about Gerrard's team for like 3 or 4 years ago compared to now. And it was like, wow, look at the quality that's dropped off. I mean, it's such a drop in player like standards. So for those guys like Docherty, Hasty, Jones, it was always going to be difficult for them to make it at that time because Gerrard had a very good squad. Suter, I suppose he's came in when most of that squad was still there. But I've never really been convinced by Suter. And I think Sunday really kind of, obviously Butland's at fault for the McGregor goal. But to me, Suter, if you watch it back, Suter actually makes himself smaller when that shot comes in. To me, you should be charging at it. Make yourself as big as possible. Like, take it in the face, get knocked out. I think it was Craig the other night in a pod, he mentioned Sasa Papa. It's literally getting knocked out, stopping a shot. And that's what Rangers need, especially in that position. He's another one who's out of contract in the summer, and I know we're going to be missing quite a few players, but I think we need a better standard of defender than Suter.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I said, I think we must have been in the same spot because I said the same thing. I said if that was Helander throws himself at it with whatever body part he can to block it, puts it all on the line, and I think that's why Butland. I think because he thinks there'll be shots going round Suter, so he dives and then obviously Suter comes down, the ball goes over Suter, and then he's having to react, and at that point he's past it and he can't get the hands fixed in time to even try and stop it. So yeah, the back line for me is a concern because a lot either we're on loan, on contract, or are going to be out of contract, or we don't have any sort of like stability looking towards next season because Suter was, I think, in contract discussions before the takeover happened, and then takeover happened and that all stopped. So the back line is a concern. Only Butland's the sort of the mainstay at the moment. I don't see Tav being here next season. I think the contract will just run out and he'll go off. He'll get his testimonial and he'll go off and some their best wishes, and then we'll be trying to find a right back that can have 20 goals and assists a season, probably for the rest of their lives. Ross, I know Sterling is back in training. Is that a positive for us?
Sterling, ability-wise and versatility-wise, yeah, definitely. But just as that same concern, is he going to stay fit? How long is it going to be before he's injured again? I think that's always going to be the thing that hangs over Sterling. It's absolutely plagued his Rangers career. I think he got a couple of bad injuries pre-Rangers as well. But anyway, we only care about what he's doing at Rangers, and it's been plagued by injury, and it's been unfortunate because he has shown in multiple positions that he can be an asset. He can be a positive contribution to the team, whether he's played right back to cover half, centre half, holding midfield. I even think against Benfica he might have played in right wing. Actually, he scored that night. So he is somebody that I do like, but it's just that same thing, same as we've had with so many players that have been recruited in the past 5 or 6 years. is he going to be able to stay fit? And it doesn't look like it's going to be, well, it'll be a welcome return, but I've always just got that worry in the back of my mind. He's 2 or 3 games away from being out for a sustained period again. It's unfortunate. He has a good player. You think if he wasn't so injury prone, he probably wouldn't be at us.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Because he came from that. He came from that Chelsea school where the quality of that Chelsea academy keeps churning out and making them a fortune, and half of them don't even see a first team Chelsea appearance, but they'll end up going off into different leagues or in the Championship, and then they end up making their way back up into the Premier League that way. So certainly, like you say, Sterling with the better quality probably wouldn't be here. Stevie, I'll give you your piece here on Shankland again. Sean is asking if Shankland's that good, why is he not getting picked for Scotland? But I think because Steve Clarke's manager, we all know why he's not getting picked for Scotland, because he's a big blue nose.
That's right. I thought he was back in the squad, to be fair. Maybe that's not right. I thought he got recalled, but even at the Euros last summer, you think back, he got like 20 minutes at the last game.
We absolutely
needed a threat.
Yeah,
we actually look like a threat. We could score a goal here because he's got presence. To me, he's like a really good all-round striker, great finisher, holds the ball up, gives you that physical presence. I've heard people say he's not fit. The guy's absolutely rock solid. He's fit. And look at him now. He's the top of the league, captain of the team that's top of the league. So, he's done really well for himself. Wish he was at Rangers very much.
I think so. I do think we missed a trick by not picking him up whenever Clement was here, and then we were at that Christmas period where we were sitting where we were sitting, and then obviously we went in that dire run in April where it just all came crumbling down because we were 5 points clear at one point. And I think if we had a Shankland in that team, I think we were looking at 56. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be, and I do think it's going to be one of those ones that I just think will pass us by. He'll just never get his chance, and it'll be a regret, and he'll probably have a nice say or a nice wee book about it, and how close he came and all that kind of carry on. Ross, I had a comment up there earlier. Stuart W says Shona is right. However, if you look at the other players we brought in from within Scotland, so Billy Dawes, Neil McCann, Thompson, Murray, Whittaker, Naismith, all did better. Like Naismith obviously went on to play for Everton, had a great career down in the Premier League. But the one that sticks out for me is Broadfoot, and Broadfoot always got a good bit of stick, but it was only because he just didn't have the ability. But you could never fault Broadfoot's work ethic and effort. Like say, he was always a standout, and he always gave you 100%, no matter who he was playing against.
Yeah, in terms of Kurt Broadfoot, I would have said, under Walter Smith, I think he's the equivalent of Walter to what, say, the likes of like a Wes Brown or a John O'Shea was to Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
Just, he's never going to be player of the year.
Yep.
But he serves a purpose, he does a job, he's always available, he's always in and around the squad. Due to injuries, they might get a start in a big game, or like a play at Parkhead or in Europe or whatever, but more often than not he wouldn't. But when he's called upon, he's reliable. And just back to just talking about, obviously Shona had said some of the players that didn't succeed at Rangers having signed with the Scottish teams in the last comment in the list of players that did. I think that goes back to what I said about, see, when you sign a player for Scotland, it's more often than not, it's generally risk free. It doesn't cost a lot of money, so if it doesn't work, it's not ideal. We want them all to, but they're not always going to work. But if the likes of Suter, Jordan Jones, they were all pre-contract, so it wasn't. Again, it's not ideal because you want everybody to do it, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen with every single one. You're going to have ones that don't work, and I think that's a risk worth taking. When the fee's so low, for example, that's why I think everybody's up in arms about the Chermiti deal, because we can't afford for that to go wrong with that amount of money. He needs to succeed, and that's why there's criticism there. But for young Scottish, because like if Lyle Cameron was to ultimately fail at Rangers and leave in a year or two, nobody would hold it against him. We'd just say he came in a free after playing well for Dundee, and it never worked. But it happens. But it's a market. I think we should we should always be looking at, because there is ones that, as you say, there's been good balance in the comments. Some have worked, some haven't. That's just the way of it.
No, you're spot on, and like you say, like the Trimiti one is a massive outlay. Now, we obviously we had our issues whenever Ryan Kent went for nothing, because we didn't deal at the right time when we should have dealt, and we couldn't get him tied down to a new contract. So he walked out the door for nothing after us spending £7 million on him. And hopefully these guys can manage this situation and find the right circumstances and find the right environment for him to thrive here, because as you say, that's a massive outlay that we can't afford to go wrong, because it's serious money. And as you say, we could have used that money, could have went around Scotland, picked up 3 or 4 players for that fee. We've just paid for one player. So, or we could have went around Europe. I was listening to the pod last night. The guys were doing on the way home in the car, and they were saying that this guy Braga that the Hearts signed from second division in Norway. Second division in Norway. I don't think it was like 500k or something, if even. He's going to go for probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5, 6 times that at the end of the season, because somebody will pick him up either down the Championship or maybe over in Holland or somewhere, or maybe even Portugal, because he's Portuguese. So somebody in a club over there will pay money for him and take him back home. It's just begs belief that we didn't go and even look at that, or is that just not something? Maybe that's just not something that was on their radar yet, because they did come out and hold their hands up. As Billy, I remember in my head, Billy said last night that they held their hands up and said that they went specifically down that route because of the time frame they had and the European games we had coming up. So, Stevie, moving on to then looking at the January window, then Sir Blue's asking, do you think Roll would have a good awareness of players in Germany that could come in January? Because I do think we need freshening up, not from the Championship, because we've been there, tried that this season and it hasn't worked.
100% agree with that. I mean, I would actually go back to what you were just talking about. Scandinavia is such a good market for players.
Yep.
They all seem to settle really well in Scotland. Hollander, I know he came from Italy, but he's obviously Swedish. Glenn Kamara, I can never say that. Kamara, tremendous player. I mean, I read something the other day that said we could have signed 200 Glenn Kamaras instead of Chermiti, and I was like, imagine that, big army of Glenn Kamaras. But they always seem to do well in Scotland. They've climbed up, but they settle really quickly, and they stay fit. Oh, right, Hollander was a bit exception to the rule, but I would look at that. I'm not sure the market in Germany. I don't know the kind of price structure of that might be quite inflated, but I'm sure he's got players on his radar that he knows that he can pick up, that can improve. And to me, it's vital. We need to get a few out, and definitely a few in January, because I know we're behind in the title race. But we're probably not in a title race right this second, but we're only 5 points behind Celtic. To me, that should be the aim, is to catch them and then see where Hearts are. Like one game at a time, but still, 6 months of this or 7 months of the season left. There's enough games to go. We get a bit of momentum. We go on a run. You never know what can be achieved. And try and win the Scottish. To me, win the Scottish Cup should be the aim, and just do as well as we can in the league and see where we're at March, April time. And if we're in a title race, fantastic. We see where we go from there. But yeah, I'm sure the manager's definitely got, his eye on maybe 3 or 4 players that he can definitely improve this team, especially at the top.
I'd like to hope so. Right, folks, we're nearing the end there, and I've got a wee slide here just for a bit of fun, because obviously we're playing an Italian team tomorrow. So there's loads for me. It's thinking about it. Greatest goal versus an Italian team. Albert's is against Parma, which was an away. Vidmar against Parma the next against season. Reina versus Parma in the same match, and then Charlie Adams versus Livorno, which was another away. Stevie, do you remember the goals? Can you pick one that was your favourite?
I remember all of them except Charlie Adams, but I didn't really like Charlie Adams, so I'm not fussed about that. Albert's was fantastic, tremendous strike. Tony Vidmar, I mean, God, what a night that was. The roof literally came off Ibrox, but for me, Reina is the one that that's the kind of iconic one at the Copeland Road. Just buried it, and it was just the best atmosphere up until Leipzig. I suppose I think it was the best atmosphere at Ibrox for me. So yeah, Reina was just kind of capped an amazing night. He's a tremendous wee player as well. He kind of he's one of these all-rounders. And we're talking about players you would give your right arm for like now, but God, what would you give for him? He's just phenomenal player. Captain America. Yeah, get to him.
Ross, yourself, your favourite?
Yeah, I remember them all. I was really, really young with Albert's one in Palmer. Was that played at like 3 in the afternoon or something?
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it?
The time difference in that. There was some
Yeah.
weird thing. It was on the. I think it was BBC were showing it. Because I mind being in private. I was in high school at the time, and I remember rushing out at 3:15 to try and get home, and some other guy was walking past, and he was listening to it on his radio. He had a wee pocket radio back in the day, and he was listening, and he was telling me the score. So I spent at home, and obviously I missed a goal, and then I think by the time we got there, it all went belly up, and I think they were on top at that point by the time I got in the door. But
yeah, I think that's a big part of why the Albert's one doesn't get mentioned as much, is because ultimately they get put out. But if that was the season after the Vidmar and Reina game, it would be remembered a lot more fondly, because it was a great goal. It was really, really far out as well, if I remember right. But yeah, no, I do remember them all. The Charlotte, the Livorno night was an underrated night for me. I think that because they were a good. They weren't one of the obviously the big guns, but they were a good side, and we were going through a real sticky patch under Le Guin at this point. And I don't think many expected us to go there and win, but we played really well. And his goal, I'm sure he scored a volley from maybe 20-25 yards. It was a good strike as well. But no, they're a good combination of goals there. The other ones I'm trying to think of, maybe Lovenkrands or Home Inter Milan, who got to the last 16. That was that was a decent finish. But thinking back to that, historically, we haven't actually played Italian teams that much in like the past. Well, I'm 32, so in my lifetime, I don't really remember us playing Italians all that much. I think that Livorno must be the last time they played an Italian team. Is that? Oh no, it's not Fiorentina.
No, Napoli.
Oh, aye. Can understand why I forgot about that.
Everybody's put that out their head. Nobody wants to remember that campaign.
First one I saw was a pre-season tournament. I think it was 1994 when it was. I think it was Sampdoria, Newcastle. I can't remember who our team was, to be fair. But
Man United.
I think it might have been. It was great. Got a couple of days, but Sampdoria just ripped us. I think it was 4-2, and Attila Lombardo. What a player that guy was! I'd never seen Rangers concede 4 goals before, and he just ripped us to pieces. I was looking at some. My missus the other day, she's like, "You want to get a football top for Christmas?" So I was looking at Sampdoria tops because that just stuck with me ever since that time. I was like, that was really kind of iconic strip. But yeah, that was a tremendous team as well.
Yeah, people in the comments are saying obviously Noble's penalty against Fiorentina. Now I wanted to include that, but obviously it's a penalty; it's not a goal, so I couldn't really, as iconic as it is.
That is obviously the most iconic of any Italian team, but because it's not a competitive goal. Yeah.
To Charlie Adams, who said that the volley against that game itself, said we were up against it with Le Guin in charge. It was one of the only positives to come out of that, and obviously Papac. That's the two things that Le Guin gave Rangers. I think that was one of their first victories ever in Italian soil as well.
It was.
And then the game, obviously Vidmar and Reina goals. I mean, that game on YouTube now, you just listen to it and you just listen to the crowd. It was ridiculous. And Buffon says it's the best atmosphere he's ever played in.
I was there, and I was sat in the Copeland rear, and there was times during I don't know if it was the first half or the second half, but Buffon, he kept turning to the support and being like, it was like he couldn't believe the noise. He was quite trying to interact and stuff, but it was a special night. I mean, their team, like you look at that team, Cannavaro, Thuram, Ortega, it's just ridiculous.
And the season before with Veron, and Crespo, the world class Argentinian, Italian, French. I mean, I don't regret getting put out by the winners of the eventual cup. I think you can hold your hands up and say we got put out with the winners, and we got, what was it, semi-final we got to, wasn't it? Or was it the quarterfinals that they put us out? And the first, and Albert's goal away in Italy.
I think it was the last 16. I thought it was 16, but they did go on and win it eventually, didn't they?
They did. They went on to win it, and then obviously they came back the next year, and Dick Advocat was there at that point, and then just that team, obviously that team for that 2000 team of ours was a joke. Folks, we've ran over there. I've just been saying Italian football, reminiscing and stuff. It's been a great pod. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope everybody in the comments has as well. Thanks to Stevie and Ross for joining me and looking ahead and taking your questions as well. It's been an enjoyable night. So thanks very much. And the graphic there, I'll put that up on the Facebook, and you can vote yourself for your favourite goal in the morning. So keep an eye out for that. Folks, thanks again for watching. Just remember, every night's a Rangers Journal night. See you there.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.